What are you seeing? There is a framing device occurring. Who is telling the story?
The narrator.
And we don't know the narrator's name, do we? No. There's an unknown narrator, a third person narrator. But then the narration is handed to somebody else. Who? Marlowe. So we are actually getting, in some ways, an English framing of a Belgian character. And there's clear admiration for Marlowe from the narrator, isn't there? Yeah, there is. I mean, he's being lauded as the only one amongst them that still follows the sea. Yeah, literally, circle that, still follows the sea. I love the term "follow the sea." It's very lyrical. It's very figurative. It creates the idea of this eternal adventurer. And once again, we're getting caught up in this, European adventurer archetype. Yes, somebody's already mentioned "Oh No" over there. You are on the right track. It's the idea that this is very much placing the male European experience at the centre of this text. And the adventurer, the idea that the world is your playground, the world is there for you to explore and exploit. And he's surrounded by success. Because where are they?
They're in London and it's on the Thames.
They're on the Thames. So the Thames. It's calm. They are people in the twilight years of their life. They are all of one sex, which is male. No women there to spoil things. They are all successful. We have accountants. What else do we have? A lawyer. And something I've never seen happen before. What do they say after the lawyer?
That he's a good person.
That he's a good person. I should say that one of my children wants to be a lawyer, and as somebody who wants to retire to a good nursing home, I will be throwing aside my Marxist values. There's a lawyer. There's an accountant. These people are being identified by their employment, and part of that is to demonstrate their success. It's all capitalised. And you're meant to like it. And it's a very idyllic image. Marlowe sitting cross-legged, leaning against the mast. We've got the director, looking at the anchor, saying it's good. We've got another guy playing with a set of dominoes, and he's saying he's toying with them. This is very much a relaxed setting. These people are ready for a story. They're going to get one. And he goes through a lot of trouble to let us know that this story is welcome. They want it. They admire this man's stories. And look how this section that I've told you about ends. And this also, said Marlowe suddenly, has been one of the dark places of the earth. I've chosen to end there because I think structurally it's important. It is not the end of that section. But I've chosen to end it there because I believe that that is a structurally important piece. Why? Why have I ended on, and this also, said Marlowe suddenly, has been one of the darkest places on earth.
Because it kind of provides that kind of shift to Marlowe's kind of account, I suppose.
Yeah, it does, but it's also, look at the word suddenly. Something is ripping through. It's like this story is now emerging from this wonderful, very soft space. Remember, the sun set, dusk fell on the stream, and lights began to appear along this shore. The Chapman Lighthouse, a three-legged thing erected in mudflat, shone strongly. Lights of ships moved far away, the great stir of lights going up and down, and furthest west to the upper reach of the place in the monstrous town was still marked ominously in the sky, a brooding light in sunshine, a lurid glare under the stars. Circle every single reference to light. and then suddenly dark. You all done that on your books? There's a transition. It's a structural transition. It sticks out. The use of the word suddenly marks it as a change of direction. Remember I said that Marlowe loves his binaries. Light, 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 dark. The moment they're in a civilized place, they're in a place that they feel comfortable, they feel powerful. But once it was one of the darkest places on earth. Do you know what he's going to go and tell a story about people who've read past page 2? To whom was this once one of the darkest places on earth? To whom? Who? I can't hear you. Your mask is...
The Romans?
You are correct.
Oh,
So... Kristen doesn't care. Shh. So... The Romans. And why is that important? Why is that an important allusion to make? The Roman...
Well, I mean, I'm kind of going out on a limb here, but it's a story about Belgian colonisation of Africa, right?
The
and
Empire.
So we have the Romans that originally, I think, at least conquered Britain, and then they would take in...
Yes,
Netherlands or
and
something
you are
like that.
exactly right. And he's going to go and talk about the fact that to the Romans, England and London was once a frightening, dark place where they felt alone, where they felt separated from their civilizing impact of their society. And it's a wonderful segue to his experiences of feeling that way himself when he goes to Africa. And it does declare him as the emotional and psychological centre of this story. And it is going to be an adventure. We know that. Look at the paragraphs preceding it. I'm just going to move it for you. They had sailed the Deptford from Greenwich, from Erith, the adventurers and the settlers, the king's ships and the ships of men, captains, admirals, the dark interlopers of the eastern trade and the commissioned generals of the eastern India fleets, hunters for gold or pursuers for fame. They'd all gone out on that steam, bearing the sword, often the torch, messengers of the might within the land, bearers of the spark from the sacred fire. What greatness had not floated on the ebb of that river into the mystery of the unknown earth, the dreams of men, the seed of commonwealths, the germs of empires. Why am I running out of breath?
This is all one sentence.
What? Oh, sorry, you answered. You were right. No. You were wrong. I thought you said something about the structure. Sad now. We are looking at form. Sentence structure, guys. Lots of commas. It's a flow-on sentence. It's overwhelming. It's getting involved in the excitement of the moment. It's that European perception as the world as a source of adventure. But also part of that imperialist perspective, that imperialist attitude, that to be a successful man, to be a complete man, you must go out and find your fortune. And your fortune is to be found in the countries of other people. I would like to point out that those people's experiences and those people's success is not part of that narrative. I'm noticing dashes, I'm noticing commas, I'm noticing exclamation marks, I'm noticing all kinds of things here. I'm noticing a lot of imagery to do with violence or to do with money, jewellery, the idea of economic advancement, fame. It's exciting in a European perspective, or terrifying if you are not within that group of people who profit from it. The dreams of men, the seed of commonwealths, the germs of empire. Who are men? Who are men? Hannah, who are men? So who are men? Who is he saying specifically are men? Who is included within men? Which one? Yeah. Who does that silence?
Anyone who's not European.
Yes. Women also.
Oh, yes.
European women are not part of this adventure model. They're not part of this narrative. They are very much side creatures, like the intended waiting at home in her black clothing for the body of her loved one to return. And notice that this archetype of the European adventurer is connected to commonwealths. What are commonwealths? What do the Commonwealth Games celebrate?
The empire.
The colonies of the empire. Germs of empires. The adventure is being connected with that. There is a great excitement about being part of the empire, spreading the empire across the world. We've only had 2 pages. And the reason why the narrator wants to hear these stories is because ultimately, even though it becomes a cautionary tale about how Europeans' civility can descend into madness when faced with the power of Africa, it's being told to the English, who have a certain smug separation from the Congo's version of colonisation, and have the safety of being able to say, but we don't do it that way. So they can enjoy the excitement of that adventurous spirit without perhaps the guilt associated with it. At least in terms of the attitudes and understanding of the 19th century reader in England at this time. Hands up if you accept that that is potentially not your reading as a contemporary Australian reader. You think it's really great to go colonise, yay, young man, go find your fortune. You're all going to go off and do that? Concerns me. Good luck. Went very well for some people, not so for others. Alright. Now, what I want you to do is look through your notes. In 3 minutes, I'm going to ask people to give me questions. At least one person from each desk must ask me a question to clarify some information that I've given you. It can't just be something simple that you make up. You must actually be asking me to clarify something. I will give you 2.5 minutes now. Remember that these are available. And remember that I did say that one of the abstracts we do in class will be your assessment.
That's crazy.
I said that so many times. I taped it and put it on sector.
It's not like the actual question, of course, but it says the word here, interlopers. What does that mean?
Invaders.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
It also implies a certain rudeness. Alright guys, 1 more minute. I've got each desk must come up with an intelligent question.
What's your favorite?
Yeah, good point.
You're all brighter than me, so you should be able to do it.
See, that's why you should don't tell him.
I can't tell you how often I try to push on a door that says pull. You're all smarter than me. I'll just sit here making sure all the barcodes on these line up. as they should.
Talking about grapes and well, sorry, it's kind of obvious. It says it in the book.
In that case, why is Earth not capital?
Because they just generally do.
Depends upon what they mean by Earth, whether they mean planet Earth, which I doubt it. Oh, that does, yeah. But they're actually literally talking about Earth as in dirt.
That's not a question.
That's all. That's a question.
Not capitalized Earth.
No, because you can see in a lot of these old texts because they don't have this.
The globe, they didn't have the picture of the bulb in their head, yeah.
What does pilot mean?
Oh yeah, that's true. Oh wait.
Alright, guys, stop. Shh. Let's start at the back. Anna's group, what question do you have for me? And if the other groups could listen. Even I don't think I do that good a job, but you have no questions. Come on.
Like the binary, the British colonization and the Belgian colonization, was there like an actual real life difference between the two? Or is it just the story creating it at opposites?
The Congo is famously brutal. It was the worst case scenario. Yeah, it was dreadful. I would suggest doing some research, and I think I did actually put some stuff about that on your Moodle. Having said that, it's still an invasion. It's still, and it was called a scramble for Africa because they were after its resources. The people's, there was a semblance of altruism, but remember, even the altruism, where the idea of bringing Christianity to a country with its own spirituality is problematic. We're standing on another case where the English colonised, so you tell me whether you think that would have been a great thing. No, okay. But good question. But certainly he is allowing the reader to accept the idea that there was. The English reader reading this can feel a sense of separation from this worst case scenario. And it may, to them, convey a certain approval. Alright, was that your question answered?
Yeah, thank you.
Hello, you got a question you would like? I hope so. You're going to have to speak up though because I'm really finding it hard.
Okay, this is like a question, this is like clarification. You said that the story becomes a cautionary tale of something.
Of what greed can do, because all of the people, bar Marlowe, are corrupted by greed. Don't forget that Kurtz, who he sees at first, he hears stories of and he believes is somehow morally superior to the other people he sees around him who are hypocrites and idiots and just obsessed with money, with making, with fame, with becoming more successful. Kurtz, he admires and he thinks that he's somehow, working better with the natives. The idea, and they do use the word natives, I know they shouldn't, but the Africans, I should say, the Congolese. And so, but when he gets there, he discovers this man has declared himself a king, is raiding other villages and stealing it, is handing out brutal executions left, right and centre. And the last sort of scenes we get of Kurtz is things like crawling through the dirt, saying the horror, a shallow sort of twisted little man. So even this person he looked up to, this ideal of what could be a success story, shows the Europeans' greed corrupting them and driving them mad. But again, it's in the Congo, it's a Dutch company, the English can say, we don't do it the same. So it's a cautionary tale, but be careful about saying that it's anti-colonisation, because it isn't. Down here, could I have a question?
No one else comes with a better one. So, since they don't have planes, what does pilot mean in this country?
Pilot the ship.
So it is just the scientist out of the ship.
Yeah.
Then, while he resembles a pilot, he is the pilot.
Because he looks like a leader, he looks like somebody who authentically belongs.
Boat.
Yeah.
It's like a boat.
Yes.
Does that help? Okay. How about down here?
Yeah, I have one. So in
Guys.
that sort of section where it,
Shh! You're relying too heavily on the microphone here, picking up the person's words, and my garbled responses making any sense in that context. Yes.
It can be noted that in the sort of section where he goes about or tells the stories of like the ship's names and where they left off, like Deptford and Greenwich and all sorts, the word, captains, admirals in the dark, and then quotes, interlopers.
Those nasty people from other parts of Europe with slightly darker skin.
Okay.
Or different ways. It's the idea of the other.
But also
The French.
The French.
The
and,
Italians.
And commissioned generals. Why has, I suppose at the end of the day, Joseph Conrad chosen to inverted commas?
It actually suggests a little bit of irony, a little bit of the idea
Sarcasm,
that they're not actually generals in the military sense, but that the idea that capitalism and its export has become kind of a little bit of, what's the right word? Some sort of organised expansion in a military form. Yeah, but it is bringing that. It is making clear to you that they're not actually military generals. Not quite. You can come in if you want. You can be quiet. Now, this has set up for you this novel. This has framed this novel. What sort of attitudes have been given to you? What sort of attitudes have been conveyed? Africa is exciting. Africa is dark. Even though they haven't gone to Africa yet, we know that they're setting it up to be part of this European adventure. We know, well, for a start, we know Marlowe survives. We know that he is respected for his adventures. So we know that this venture will give him something of value, whether it be knowledge, whether it be money. We know that it will give him something of value. This man is not sitting in a gutter. This is not somebody who has been destroyed by the experience. This is a man who has been hardened and formed by the experience. And his experience is respected. So no matter what kind of cautionary tale about capitalist expansion under the empire or colonisation or the treatment of Africans comes out of this, ultimately it's going to endorse that model of the adventurer, the white adventurer, because ultimately he becomes respected within the male environment. Would you agree? Hannah, I'm hurt. So, does that make sense to you? Hands up, yes? Hands up, I'm going to have to watch this video a couple of times. Okay. I'll try and get it up as soon as possible. And remember, this could be one of the ones that you get tested on.